The New York Islanders have lost forward Kyle Palmieri for the rest of the season. We'll talk about the impact of the loss and how it affects the New York Islanders coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thank you for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got plenty to discuss on today's show. We will start with the injury to Kyle Palmieri, what impact that has on the team and how they should handle it. We'll also talk about a tough loss to the Washington Capitals on Sunday, and we'll have our hero and go to the game from both Sunday's game and Friday's loss to the Philadelphia Flyers, where the Islanders at least showed some resilience. Let's start with the Kyle Palmieri injury. First of all, before we even dive into the injury, how impressive was it that on a play where Kyle Palmieri is clearly in pain, lost for the season with a serious injury, going to now, miss the rest of the regular season for sure, and probably even if the Islanders go on a long playoff run, he's not going to be back this year, out 6 to 8 months. And look, Palms is a big loss for this team. But on the play where he gets hurt, the puck comes back into the zone, and Palmieri gets the puck on his stick as he's struggling to get to the bench, delivers a pass to a teammate, and the result is he gets an assist on a goal on the very play where he can barely get himself off the ice. That is a hockey player's maneuver, and just, tip your hat to Kyle Palmieri, given the difficult situation that he was in, the pain that he was in, and the fact that he still had the presence of mind to pass the puck to a teammate while struggling to get to the bench. That is just impressive. And wow, Kyle Palmieri leaving the ice for the last time this season, but doing so in impressive fashion. But after you get past the remarkable final move that he made, you then have to say, okay, what do we do? Because Kyle Palmieri tied with Matthew Schaefer and Matthew Barzal for second most points on this team with 18. He has 5 of those 18 points on the power play. I don't have to tell Islander fans how much the power play has been struggling lately, but now you lose one of the mainstays of the power play. And again, it's going to be tough to replace him. And ultimately, you now have a hole in your second line and on your power play that will be very difficult to replace. And everydayers will recall, I've talked often this season, that the Islanders have more depth at forward now than they have in recent years. And that is absolutely true. However, where that depth is more in the bottom 6 than on the top 6. the Islanders had a glut of bottom six forwards that they could move in and out of the lineup. If one player was doing badly, you bring in another. But as far as top echelon guys, it is not going to be easy to replace Kyle Palmieri, especially when forward-wise, you've already lost J.G. Pageau. Now, Pageau is only gone for another, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks. Matthew Darche indicated he expects Pageau back by Christmas. Well, that's not happening with Palmieri. And what we need to see now, I think, more than anything, is one of the two Russians, whether it's Shabanov or Tsyplakov, one of them is going to have to step up and become a productive top six winger on this team to replace Kyle Palmieri. Now, in the case of Shabanov, the guy has only played at this stage in his career 13 NHL games. And this year was sort of expected to be an adjustment year for Max Shabanov. And, he's got 7 points in 13 games. If he can get it up to 8 or 9 points in 13 games, generally speaking, as a ratio, maybe he can step up. And Shabanov, 2 of his 4 assists have come on the power play. Maybe he's the guy who could step up. Or Maxim Tsyplakov, who has really struggled this year. 15 games, 1 goal, no assists, -7. Here's a guy who needs to be better than what he's shown in the early part of this season. But with the injury, maybe this is an opportunity. Now, the Islanders did recall Mark Gatcom from Bridgeport early on Sunday. So at least Gatcom is, available, but he is not a top 6 kind of forward. Initially, what I think happens is you move Shabanov and Tsyplakov onto the second line, and you move Gatcom up onto the fourth line, and ideally you either sit Casey Cizikas or Kyle McLean, but we'll see how Matthew Darche and Patrick Waugh decide to handle this. And it may very well be that the fourth line guys rotate in and out depending on the hot hand and the line combinations and everything else. Obviously, there has been buzz around the media, around social media, Islanders fans. Should the Islanders go out and acquire somebody to replace Kyle Palmieri? My answer right now is no. And I'll explain why. Right now, the Islanders have 2 key players in Alexander Romanov and Kyle Palmieri, who are out for the season. J.G. Pageau out for roughly another month, as we mentioned. This team, right now, with everybody healthy, was in the middle of the fight for the playoffs. And the Eastern Conference is so bunched together. You win 3 games in a row, and you could be in the top 2 or 3 spots in the conference. You lose, 3 out of 4, and you're either the wild card or you're even out of the playoffs altogether. It's that tightly bunched. What the Islanders need to do first is be patient, see if Shabanov or Tsyplakov or some other player, maybe Simon Holmstrom, can step up. Who knows? He hasn't showed much yet this year, but maybe he can step in to the second line and be more productive. But ultimately, you want to try to solve this problem from within first. And everydayers know my belief about this team is this. They are better this year than they were a year ago. They are more exciting to watch this year than they were a year ago. And they will continue to develop. But I don't want to sacrifice the future to try to sneak into the playoffs this year. If the Islanders can go out and add a veteran forward who, let's say is on an expiring contract and not give up much, hey, we'll trade you one of our surplus bottom six forwards for a guy we think could fit onto the second line. Okay. But don't give up those high draft picks. Don't give up young prospects unless the guy you're getting back is a young, good NHL caliber player. If you're getting back a 23-year-old version of Kyle Palmieri, maybe I would consider making that kind of trade eventually. But the other aspect is this: with the standing so close, with the fact that we are just starting the month of December and the trade deadline isn't until March, anytime you try to acquire a player now, it is not a buyer's market. Teams are going to ask the moon. They know the Islanders are dealing with injuries, and the price will be high. Do not sacrifice the future. Anything that this team does this year is a bonus. And with the injuries that are piling up, I want to give this roster every opportunity to see if they have what it takes to get out of this situation with the injuries. You'll get Pajot back at some point. But ultimately, to me, the words Matthew Darche spoke when he was at his introductory press conference earlier this year: I want to build a perennial Stanley Cup contender. Don't sacrifice that to put a Band-Aid on a wound that needs a tourniquet. It will take time to build this team back up to be that perennial Stanley Cup contender. I am not against making a minor move to improve this team short term, but I do not want to sacrifice top prospects or number one draft picks unless the guy I'm getting back in this deal is young, talented, and ready to step in. Like that would be okay, getting a young player or a prospect, but otherwise do not give up the future to try to sneak into the playoffs this year. That is counterproductive to the long-term goals of this team. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. It was a rough weekend for the Islanders. We will have our key takeaways from both of this weekend's games, our heroes and goats of the game. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, one of a famous group of brothers who was only briefly an Islander during the 1994-95 season. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got that and much more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Drip Drop. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sport drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top collagen pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix a packet before I head to the pool to exercise, and it helps me get through that midday slump. Hydration has become non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. It was not a great weekend for the New York Islanders, and Sunday's loss in particular was difficult to handle. You got the Washington Capitals coming in, and look, it's a division game. It's a 4-point game. The good news is that the Islanders did not give up a lot of scoring chances. The Capitals had 18 total shots on goal in this game. Only 2 of the goals go in off of Ilya Sorokin, 2 empty netters. So you look at the final score. Oh, yeah, they lost 4-1. Wasn't even close. Yeah, it was. Because 2 of those goals were empty netters at the end when it didn't matter. And you look at the shots on goal in this game, and the Islanders had 31 shots, and the Capitals had 18. But 2 familiar problems hit this team hard in this game. Number 1, an inability to finish both on the power play, although their 1 goal did come on the power play, but an inability to finish, and the fact that they have no answer when other teams play a physical style of hockey. The Islanders had no answer whatsoever for Tom Wilson. And look, you cannot allow your team to be consistently intimidated on the ice. And we have seen this happen far too often to this team. Now, Mark Gatcomb is not a heavyweight by any stretch of the imagination, but at least he'll add some physical component to the 4th line if Patrick Roy puts him in the lineup, and I think they should. But overall, this team still lacks an enforcer and lacks the element of physicality. And with Kyle Palmieri out of the lineup, you need even more physicality under the circumstances. But the lack of finishing is definitely problematic. It's frustrating because the Islanders were carrying play for the majority of this game, but weren't able to capitalize. And Bo Horvat got the only goal of the game, as I mentioned, on the power play. He's got to be the hero of the game, without question. He got you the only goal. And the goal to the game is obvious to me, Ilya Sorokin. Because the first goal, not great, but not horrible. But the second goal was just a bad giveaway by Sorokin, passing the puck, gave it right to the Washington Capitals, and voila, the puck is in the back of the net. And, you know, you can't do that under any circumstances. You just gave Tom Wilson an unassisted goal, easy as they come. He tries to pass the puck to the middle of the net, trying to find Matthew Schaefer, puts it right on the stick of Tom Wilson, and bam. All of a sudden, it's 2-0. And a game that you were still in at 1-0, but outplaying the opposition, all of a sudden you're down 2. So that was frustrating. And again, because this team is lacking one of their top 6 forwards, one of their better offensive forwards, and then a useful third-line guy like J.G. Pageau, scoring is going to be more difficult and more of a challenge. So the Islanders cannot afford bad giveaways and mistakes like what Ilya Sorokin did on that play against the Washington Capitals. And it's going to be a challenge. Let's face this fact. It is going to be more difficult for this team. And again, after Lou Lamoriello left and Matthew Darche came in, I've said, and everydayers will recall, I've said this is going to be a process and it's going to take time. And the fact that Bo Horvat is off to such a good start and Matthew Barzal seems rejuvenated at times this year, and Matthew Schaefer has had a great impact. That has helped this transition get off to a fast start. But now with 3 key players out of the lineup, 2 of them for the season, it's going to be a challenge. And the big question that this Islanders team has to answer, and it kind of started with Sunday's game against the Capitals, is can they take that next step forward? Can they get out there and take the next step forward to being more successful by somebody stepping up and raising their game? Doesn't have to be one guy. It could be, if Simon Holmstrom can give you 23 goals this year instead of 20, and Tsyplakov goes from 10 goals a year ago to 15, and Shabanov gives you 20. You add all that up, and it could be enough to make this team better. But it is going to be a challenge. And hopefully this team, with all the veterans that they have on it, can do something. And the other thing is this, and I'll tie this back into what I said in the first segment. These injuries should not change the long-term goals of this team. And if moving on from some of these veterans who do not have a role on this team's retool going forward, or whose contracts are up, or whose level of play is starting to decline, you still have to move them out, even if it means missing the playoffs, because you still want to accumulate younger players, picks, prospects, and make this team that perennial cup contender. So if the guys who are on this roster right now, whether they're some of the older guys or even some of the younger guys who are struggling, want to be a part of this retool, now is the time to show it. I don't think that Matthew Darche is going to make a move right away either way. Not a big move. We may see something similar to, the Perunovic acquisition or the Boqvist acquisition, where you trade a 7th-round pick for a player. Or maybe you deal a Pierre Engvall who isn't playing this year, or future considerations. But overall, I don't anticipate a major move until we get closer to at least to the Olympic break. So this is the chance for these players to prove themselves and to show that they belong on this team and have a role on this team going forward. Let's see who's equal to the task and who isn't. We have got more to discuss on today's show. We will talk about the resilience that the Islanders showed Friday's game against the Flyers. We'll have that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you could place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Friday afternoon's game, and the Islanders never seem to do well in matinees. I wish they would schedule less of them. But Friday's game was a tough one. But at least it left me feeling a little better about this team, because they fell behind 3-0. And it wasn't looking good, right? And then they come back. And they get 3 goals to tie it. including a power play goal by Anders Lee, another goal from Matthew Schaefer. Emil Heineman, 10 goals, matches his career high already. And here we are, it was still November. So at least they came back and did what they needed to do. Obviously, this team struggles in shootouts. We all know that. And they lose in the shootout 2-1 and end up with 1 point. And if you were to tell me, hey, they're going to fall behind 3-0 and they'll end up getting a point out of it, I would be quite happy with that, right? I mean, that would be acceptable. But again, I think the Islanders were the better team for large stretches of this game, and they just couldn't find a way to finish. And that is the frustrating thing. Sometimes it's not just that you lose, it's how you lose. And, that is part of the problem. And look, hero of the game, I'm going Matthew Schaefer. He had a goal and an assist in this game, blocked 4 shots, and continues to impress. And as far as GOAT of the game, you had a 4-minute power play late in this game and could not produce. Yeah, they got 1 power play goal. There's little signs that the power play is getting better, but right now, special teams just killing this team. And the power play came into Sunday's game, still ranked dead last in the league. It's got to be better, especially when you have 2 of your top, 2 of your more productive forwards out of the lineup. That's my go to the game. It remains the power play. You get 1 point this weekend in 2 games where you're up against divisional opponents. Yeah, it's a long season. Yeah, this homestand has not been great, but hopefully the Islanders will show the resilience that they've shown. And again, with this team right now, I am thinking long-term a lot more than I am thinking about this team and what it does this year. I'd love to see them make the playoffs. I'd love to see them go on a run, but the long-term results are the most important thing for me because of how deep a hole this team was left in when Lou Lamoriello left. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. We're a day early on this one, but Tuesday will be the 62nd birthday of former Islanders forward Ron Sutter, originally a first-round pick of the Flyers in 1982, made his NHL debut in 82-83 with the Flyers, played later for the Blues and the Nordique before joining the Islanders for the 94-95 season. Played in 27 games, had a goal and 5 points, 21 penalty minutes. After that, played for the Bruins, the Sharks, and the Flames. Sutter, he had a few 20-goal seasons in Philadelphia, but by the time he got to the Islanders, he was more of a checking forward. Played 1,093 career NHL games, 205 goals, 533 points, 1,352 penalty minutes. Add 8 goals and 40 points in 104 playoff games, none of those with the Isles. But we go back and look at one of his better games with the Islanders, April 7th, 1995. Islanders visiting Madison Square Garden to take on the Rangers. And in this game, the Islanders and the Rangers heading to a deadlock as the third period gets underway. And early in that third period, with the game tied 3-3, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Ron Sutter scores his only goal as an Islander. Marty McGuinness gets the assist, and it turns out to be the game winner. 31 saves by Tommy Soderstrom, and the Islanders go on to beat Mike Richter and the Rangers by a score of 4-3. For Ron Sutter, he scored 1 goal, was a +1. He had 4 shots on goal, and yes, his goal was the game winner. Ron Sutter, a checking 2-way forward who was briefly a New York Islander. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. And I am also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for a little instant insight and analysis. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We will further discuss how the Islanders can handle the Kyle Palmieri injury. And we will have a full preview of the game tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning as the Islanders start to wrap up this disappointing homestand. Not going to be easy, but a big game for Matthew Darche, who's going to be facing his former organization. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.